What means and methods of warfare are prohibited by precautions in attack? Imagine a battlefield where every move counts, not just for victory but for protecting innocent lives. That's the core idea behind precautions in attack under international humanitarian law. When countries or groups are involved in armed conflict, they must follow rules to limit harm to civilians and civilian objects. These rules are part of the Geneva Conventions and additional protocols, which set clear standards for lawful conduct during war. One major restriction is on indiscriminate attacks. These are attacks that do not target specific military objectives or use weapons that cannot tell the difference between soldiers and civilians. For example, using weapons that spread out shrapnel everywhere or bombs that explode over large areas without precision are forbidden. Such attacks risk harming many civilians and destroying homes or hospitals without military justification. Another key rule is about disproportionate attacks. Even if a military target is valid, the expected civilian harm must not be excessive compared to the military advantage gained. If an attack is likely to cause a lot of civilians suffering that outweighs the military benefit, it should not be carried out. This means commanders need to carefully weigh the potential damage before launching an attack. Parties involved in conflict must also verify targets and take all feasible precautions. This involves checking whether a target is truly a military objective and making sure civilians are not in the way. If it becomes clear that an attack would cause too much civilian harm, it must be canceled or postponed. This is where methods of warfare that do not allow for such verification are prohibited. For example, using weapons or tactics that make it impossible to assess civilian presence or damage are not allowed. Giving effective advance warnings to civilians is another important precaution. When possible, parties should warn civilians before attacking areas where they might be harmed. This could be through leaflets, loudspeakers, or other means. If warning would jeopardize the military operation, then it might not be necessary, but generally, providing warnings helps protect civilians. Weapons or methods that cause unnecessary suffering or superfluous injury are also banned. This includes weapons like chemical or biological agents that can cause long-term harm or pain beyond what's needed to disable an enemy. The law aims to prevent suffering that is not justified by military necessity. Finally, even if an enemy places military objectives near civilians, attackers must still take precautions to avoid harming innocent people. Methods that ignore this duty are restricted. For example, firing artillery near a school or hospital without considering civilian safety is prohibited. In practical terms, this means soldiers and commanders should choose precise weapons, avoid launching attacks if civilian harm seems too high, and always check if precautions are possible. If new information shows civilians might be harmed excessively, they must stop or change their plans. The goal is to balance military needs with the duty to protect civilians from unnecessary suffering. These rules are part of international law because they help keep warfare as humane as possible and safeguard those who are not fighting.